Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused in the areas of advanced illnesses, specifically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula, an avid writer, having published well over 500 healthcare articles dealing with chronic and terminal illness, an avid book author and self-publisher, having published 21 books for hospice nurses. Many of them are used nationwide as part of training and development, 24 books for caregivers, 5 for holistic nurses, 6 for end-of-life doulas, and probably by the time you're watching this, my brand new book for a series yet to be determined, but the book itself is going to be for integrating grief as part of grief recovery from a Christian perspective. That should be published on Amazon by the time that you're seeing this video. I typically do my videos in advance. Today is Monday, November 17th. This video is probably going to be published the second week of December 2025. The topic for today's video is going to be for my fellow end-of-life doulas. I'll have videos, by the way, on this channel for my hospice nurses, for my fellow holistic nurses, for end-of-life doulas, caregivers, family members, patients, and so on. But today, I want to answer the question, do you have to be certified in order to practice as an end-of-life doula? Before I get to the topic of today's video, if you like these type of topics dealing with death and dying and the journey there, to reduce fear, to improve outcomes, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification below. I try to publish videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, corresponding when articles not on the same topic most of the time are being published on compassioncrossing.info at about 5:45 a.m. And if you like a particular video discussion here, please do like it. It does help the YouTube algorithm for a small channel like mine in terms of getting the word out. Now, before we go on to answering the question, my opinion only, do you need to be certified in order to practice as an end-of-life doula? I want to ask you, what are you grateful for? As I finished up my book on grief integration from the Christian point of view, and even though it was written from that point of view, the concept that I'm going to discuss now applies to everybody. When we talk about being put down to where we can't function from a depression or grief standpoint, that there's no faith issue, there's no religious issue. It's how do I even get out of this is a question first and foremost. Well, I believe prevention's the best medicine. No cliche or pun intended. If we build and maintain resilience, we can put those occasions at the far end of the spectrum. We could reduce our risk for that. I believe there are 3 pillars for this. We talk about the third pillar indirectly on this channel when I ask this question, what are you grateful for? If you're interested in the other 2 pillars, ask below. What are you grateful for? So for me, I am so grateful that you're taking the time to watch. I'm grateful for those who are buying and reading my books. I'm grateful for Dr. Andy Arari, who promoted this book on LinkedIn just a short while ago, saying that this book should be handed out to everyone who's on Medicare, whether they're on hospice or not. It's a brutal reality check, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what that journey looks like to prepare families, power of attorneys, caregivers. And so I'm so grateful for that. Now, in terms of the topic for today's video, I participate in a number of social media venues on LinkedIn and Facebook, and those are the 2 main sources, occasionally Instagram. And I'm seeing a growing trend of people wanting, they desire to be a death doula or end-of-life doula. And one of the burning questions that they have is, do I need to be certified? Do I need to go to school for this? When I first started my own journey, and I've been doing this for about 2 years, so we're in 2025 now, so about 2023 to now, I've been doing this the majority of it remotely. I've helped a family in India. I helped a family in England. I help various families in the US. And I've done the majority of that uncertified. This year I did a journey. Should I? Is it better to? And while I did go to a school where I felt they did a good job on that particular entry-level course, I would rate it as 7 or an 8 out of 10. The end result out of that journey, because before going in the journey, I'm the book author. One of the books that I wrote, please pardon me, you know, when I wrote this, I was like, you know what? It doesn't replace a school. It doesn't replace a school. And then I go to school and I'm doing more and more homework. I'm the geeky nerd. It's not that it hurt. It wasn't a horrible investment. But for a lot of people, the cost of these schools, even the least expensive, where they're just fully online and they're doing it like a puppy mill, can be somebody's food bill for the entire month or their mortgage or rent. That's why this question is so critical. So I want to answer this question, but I also want to go over a very critical fact that matters beyond belief, at least to me. The end-of-life doula field is unregulated. There are zero consumer protection, zero. Nothing to protect those who hire us. Nothing. I know there might be some fine tuning to that where people will say, well, if there's a contract, but before we get to that part, there's no consumer protections because they don't have a way to validate what they're getting. If you or I or the person across from you, your neighbor, your coworker, your friend, the family member, goes and hires privately a certified nursing assistant, that's a genuine certification, there's consumer protection because there's an absolute bare minimum of training they had to have in order to be certified. And they went to an accredited institution and there's a governing body that certifies them and oversees to make sure are that you can like look up, even like I'm a registered nurse. You can go to nurses, NURSYS.com and look me up, put in my name, put in the other variables that they're asking, and it will come up. I'm licensed as a registered nurse, multi-state in the state of Kentucky, and I have a single state Pennsylvania license. And you'll also see there's no disciplinary action. It's called unencumbered, no encumberment, meaning no disciplinary action. You'll see that I am completely, I am who I say I am. There's a national database. Nurses is a national database. And you can go to the Kentucky Board of Nursing and the Pennsylvania Board of Nursing. And for one of my colleagues who may be watching this video, hi, Montana. For her, you can go to the Georgia Board of Nursing. So if you're a nurse or a certified nursing assistant, and a nurse could be an LPN or an RN, you can go to the board for the state, or you can go to nurses, NURSYS, which is a national database. And you can put in and look up, and by the way, nurses is for nurses, not for CNAs, at least not that I'm aware of. But you can look that up and you can validate. You can validate as part of like background checks. Like I have my hack nursing, sweatshirt on. You could validate. You can go, Harrisburg Area Community College, Lancaster campus. Did you have a Peter Abraham that went there and graduated? Could I see the transcripts? And some of this you might need my permission to help you gain that information. But you could validate there's consumer protection as to what was the absolute minimum that I got trained. And by the way, if I say I graduated hack with I have to look up what I don't have my GPA memorized. It was 3.9 or 8 something. But if I give you that number after looking it up, my short-term memory is like this. You can validate that information. And you can know that because it's an accredited school, not a paper mill, or somebody's else run out of garage or run out. Most of the Doula schools are run out of a home from a point of view. And I'm not trying to say that to bash them. There are good schools out there. But the catch is good schools are probably run on good intentions, and good intentions don't mean a lot if there's no consumer protection. And that consumer protection also extends if there's no consumer protection for the student. I mentioned that the entry-level course for the one school was a 7 to an 8 out of 10. It was worth the money. I paid the equivalent of a month's rent or a mortgage payment for a month to take an advanced life planning class from the same school, thinking that because they did such a great job on the first one, I consider a 7 to an 8 out of 10 a great job, that it would be at least a 7. It was a negative 10 out of 10. I didn't get my money back. No refund policy, no consumer protection. That's why this question, do I need the certification, is so important. Most of these schools out there are online only. There are some, including where I went, that they do have on-site available. Even so, and I can't stress this enough, because the one that I mentioned, the ACP class, that was negative 10 out of 10, I had students contact me that weren't even in my cohort, but went on site, and they had a horrible experience too. On site doesn't necessarily mean better. They had a horrible experience too. People not, the instructor not showing up, material missing, no makeup days, you're on your own. No consumer protection goes, it's a wide spectrum. So I had on the All Things Death Duel, it's a very popular forum on Facebook. Very good question. The person asking, I only want to focus on legacy work and advanced care planning, and to their credit, they said they want to use 5 wishes. Now I state that because, pardon me, I'm, standing desk has benefits. They wanted to use this as their document. I just share that Mother Teresa. I have a pet peeve, not against, but for. That may sound odd. The school that I went to that was negative 10 out of 10 spent 4 to 6 hours over 8 weeks just bashing this. That was part of my frustration. Like I'm not paying to have the instructor waste my time bashing a well-orchestrated organization and document that they should have known from 1996 was actually going to do the values and the statements that Mother Teresa espouses. You kidding me? But anyway, here, even if even entry-level classes that are well done, do you really need that? And the conclusion that I have, this is just my opinion, no. Especially for what this person was asking. They just want to do legacy work and living wills. Now, number one, for legacy work, most of the schools out there for legacy work briefly mention it. The better ones will have a module on legacy work, but it's minimally based. And I do mean minimally. She wanted to focus and I said she because most end-of-life doulas, just like nurses, are female versus male. We both can do this. But she wanted to use 5 wishes. So I couldn't even refer to the school that was a negative 10 out of 10 because they would have got the same instructor that hates this because they live up to Mother Teresa's value-based systems. Again, it blows my mind. So there's not schools focused on just these two components. Now, I did mention in a previous video of mine, I am considering a class, not a course, a class for end-of-life professionals who want to just focus on living wills and power of attorney. Highly focused. I still have to map it out. Could I do this in 4 hours and less? What would be the amount of time invested? Do I want to do it live, etc., and so on? And to have it extremely affordable because it's going to be a class, not a course. That's a different story. But I basically shared with that person, if that's the direction that you want to go, and yes, I'm biased, beyond the living will, and this does actually focus on using 5 wishes. It works with state documents, but it actually was the foundation is 5 wishes. And by the way, the why it works with state documents is to a degree, they're interchangeable. I shouldn't even say to a degree. 5 wishes does give a couple states, what is it, page 11? They give a couple states that are mentioned on certain things to watch out for. They go over more of that on 5wishes.org. But if you don't have 5 wishes for the document, this works with the state documents. And then I told her for legacy work, this is written specifically for legacy work. It's the only book that I'm aware of on the marketplace. It gives 50 plus legacy project ideas using SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time specific. That the time specific part, you do have to have a conversation with hospice. What's their prognosis? Because you don't want to do a 6-month project if the patient only has 2 weeks to live. So this goes over chapter by chapter, different ideas, including, what if they had 2 weeks? What if they had a month? And so on and so forth. So I shared that. And before I go too much further, there's this humongous end-of-life doula care planning. This is like, how do I create care plans so I can help the patient through physical, emotional, spiritual, and psychosocial issues. Crucial end-of-life conversations. How do I have those hard conversations with family members, with caregivers, powers of attorneys, the patients who are cognitively able? Those of you who do vigil planning, there's this complete guide, very comprehensive, how to plan and execute a vigil. By the way, hospices do not do this. Hospice agencies don't do this. Hospice agencies, and I'm not trying to pick on hospice for this. I've been involved out of the blue, the family's calling in a panic. They're actively dying, but they didn't just go right away. We need to do a vigil. Help! And then the hospice agency is literally asking for everyone to volunteer as much time as they're able. They'll give a schedule out. Can you fill in this time, that time, this time, and that time? All you have to do is go and sit. There's no should there be aromatherapy or not? Should there be music or not? How do they want to be handled before, during, and even after the after part? I need to be very clear for end-of-life doulas. We have to be unbelievably careful for the laws of the land and the state that you operate in. Funeral homes can be very legalistic, litigious, and protective of this. We can't charge for after-death care if we're doing anything for after. You have to. I'm not going to say more. This is not legal, medical, etc. advice. Know your state laws. But the hospice agency is not going to orchestrate the vigil from the best perspective. And so that's where this goes into, get in there before you, even if the question is raised. So you'd be the one raising the question and going through the plan. And as part of this, as part of the appendices, are forms that to work through how to plan this out. And again, I did mention this in terms of if you do want to become a death doula as well. And yes, I am biased. I am biased. I do have to, I wish we lived in the world of fine print, but in a similar question to what this person asked, they were more specific. They wanted to do living will document. And I made a comment, don't go to that school for that course because a negative 10 out of, I didn't say negative 10 out of 10. I said it was awful. And, and then how dare you're being unprofessional. You're promoting your works while you're down in the school. It's like, how, if we don't speak up about bad experiences, other people are going to have bad experiences. Where do you draw the line? If a hospice agency, for example, was horrible, and you happen to be, whether it be in a supermarket or grocery store or business networking, etc., or with a family, and they're asking about so-and-so agency, and you've done your homework. So it's not just gossip. Don't operate on gossip. You've done your homework. You're going to just let them have a horrible experience because it's the professional thing to do? When did we get to a society that if somebody, they're allowed to cause harm because no one's speaking up? And by the way, I say it that way because at least 1/3 of the class wrote the founder of the school in question to complain about missing materials, promised materials. I specifically said 4 to 6 hours wasted bashing this, in addition to the censorship that took place. Censorship over, and this I do believe is important. I understand it's a rabbit trail. September 9th, part of the discussion was the instructor, and I'm going to use my words, this is my words, badgering the students that everybody should be an organ donor. No excuses. And then I and a bunch of others were discussing in chat, literally less than 30 minutes from where I live, in a very well-known hospital that has a good reputation except for attempting to harvest organs. They started the process and the guy woke up because he wasn't brain dead. And the nurse whistleblower was fired. There's now major lawsuits. This is a nationwide, United States, if not worldwide, problem. I am not an organ donor because this is not an isolated incident. And when we had this discussion, which were multiple people, including multiple nurses chiming in, nurses who know better than the instructor, who is not a nurse, who does not work in healthcare, were saying this is a crisis. It is not clear cut and dry. People have to know. It's your choice, but you have to know the risk. You have to know the risk that you're at huge risk to have your organs harvested when you're not dead. The next class is chats moderated by the extreme left. Only 3 people that were yes people to the instructor. I complained, 1/3 of the class complained. Multiple issues, I just named a handful and literally brushed off. Students, that's just bonus material. You got what you paid for. Goodbye. I'm no longer associated with that school just because there was not even a middle ground. I was asked, do you want to have a conversation after this? Not the way you're answering it. You gave the most unrealistic answer that like that doesn't even come close to reality. There was no compromise. There's no how do we do better next time. Thank you for the input. Let's improve for next time. It was oh my, unregulated industry. Unregulated industry. I shared with this person who asked this good question, do I need to go to a school? This person was not considering, by the way, they had their own school picked out. It was 100% online. It was one of those under $200 programs. You need to do that. And I shared, I am certified. I only did it from the perspective of, I wonder about this. There were good points I did get out of the program. It was a good experience for that entry-level class. I want to give credit where credit is due. But it was a lesson learned too. It was like a lot of this stuff, why? Especially when there's no consumer protection. Especially when you can just go and say, I'm certified, here you are as a piece of paper. That certification does not prove you know what you're doing. It doesn't, there's no confidence for the consumer. Maybe from a grifting standpoint, and I do mean that literally. I'm not saying people are grifting, but it's like there's no consumer protection. Again, registered nurse, nurses, Kentucky Board of Nursing, Pennsylvania Board of Nursing, for Montana, Georgia State of Nursing, for another one of my students, I forgot what maybe, I think she might have been in Washington State. Go to that board, you can look people up. If you hire a CPA, you can look them up. You hire an attorney, you can look them up. And I'm not saying there aren't directories. There's not a universal directory for doulas. I'm not saying you can't look people up and eventually find them, but there's no way to validate the experience that they have. So to me, where I'm going to end, number one, I no longer believe you need certification. Number two, at least for now, if there starts to be, we're having governing bodies, there's proper credentialing, which would require a governing body. And I use proper credentialing because there's a school out there, if not several, looking at making a board, similar to a board of directors, a panel, a board that would validate the product. But the catch here, it is an internal validation. That's good. I give credit where credit is due. That is good, but it's still not consumer protection. It's still not consumer protection, because how are you going to validate XYZ? Because you can't. There's no minimum standard. What are you going against? It's all in-house. And again, kudos for the effort, but until Kentucky, New Jersey, New York, Texas, etc., these are the absolute minimums and a way to prove it, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. What do you do? Well, what I want to become, I feel compelled to call. Number one, first and foremost, before you do anything, realize that death doulas and end-of-life doulas are operating in an unregulated field. There's no consumer protection for your customers or you. No one is protected in this field. Number two is this is not a place to get employment. I've had people come to me, they go to compassioncrossing.info, and even though I have, like, I share, I'm not running a doula school, they'll come to me, I want to get trained, Peter. I offer staffing and development training to healthcare organizations, not to end-of-life doulas. I don't know how to make that more clear on my website or now, but they'll come to me, and I'll query them to try to help them. Then maybe there is a school out there that would be a fit based on what they're asking. And but they're saying, I want to get employed in this field. Hello, you're your own employer in this field, the overwhelming majority of the time. There are a handful. There are a handful. When I say that, maybe I might be minimizing the handful. Maybe it's 1%, which might be 100 people. I don't know. Right now we don't, because there's not a universal directory. I don't know how many thousands or tens of thousands of doulas are out there. I know in Madison County, Kentucky, I am the only one. There was one in Lexington, Kentucky, that closed their doors. And the Lexington's not in Madison County. I believe that's Fayette County. I'd have to double check. But I'm still learning counties in Kentucky. But in the state of Kentucky, there might be, what, 10 or 20, the entire state. Some states have more, some states may have less. But you go out there, there's only a handful that are employed by hospices or other companies. And sometimes they're not even employed as a doula. There's people, they're employed as a volunteer coordinator. That's not bad. None of this is bad. But if you're going into this, you are your own boss. That means you pay for your own health insurance. You pay for your own expenses. You come up with your own contracts. You do your own billing. You do your own credit collections if people aren't paying. You deal with your own legal issues, your own insurance. You're running a business. So before we even get to, do I get certified as not, understand what you're getting into. You're getting into an unregulated industry that has no protection for you or your clients, and you'd be running your own business with everything that goes in, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm running my own business. I believe it's worthwhile, at least for now. But you're running your own business. If you're okay with that, or maybe you're going to say, I'm going to just give it away for free. I'm just doing this as a volunteer. Well, number one, if you're doing it as a volunteer, I think you answered your own question, because if you're not going to get paid, why would you invest several hundred to several $1,000s to be certified, where it's literally a graduation certificate that you don't need in order to volunteer? You could go to a nursing home, a personal care or assisted living, and say, I just want to volunteer to work with anyone who's at end of life. I'd actually take that track first. The other track, which some of you might, why didn't you say hospice first? Is because hospice, you're under their complete umbrella for rules, regulations, times, and so on and so forth. On top of that, neither is going to train you to how to recognize end of life symptoms or anything like that. None of them is going to be able to, oh my word, verify that. Sorry about that. And let me just, not interested. So here, nobody's going to give you that breathing pattern's the death rattle. I shouldn't say breathing pattern. That's the death rattle, or that's the chain stoking breathing pattern. Unless you're there, well, there's a hospice nurse there to say that's what it is. And by the way, that's what's lacking in a lot of these schools. Even the one that was 7 out of 8, there was not like a module on breathing patterns. There was brief discussions on certain components, but you didn't get to live it. You weren't on site for it. So you're going to be volunteering. You don't need that at all. You don't need that at all in terms of certification. You're going to do this as a business. What I would recommend is, whether it's my books or somebody else's, do your homework and go start your practice. Try sliding scale, which could be 0, and see how it goes. Do community education events and see how it goes. I share that with you because, again, on the business route, that Susan O'Brien, she has doula givers. That's one of the high end, and high end does not mean high quality, and I'm not saying that to knock the school, but that's one of the schools that's around $3,000 for the certification. She was asking in several different groups how many people, how many end-of-life doulas practice part-time or full-time. The overwhelming majority of the responses, I forget whether it was the All Things Death Doula or the University of Vermont Doula School, they have their own Facebook group, got 45 responses. 45. I want to sink in, 45 over the entire United States of America, 45 responses. Susan is a celebrity in this field. Good or bad. She's a celebrity in this field. 45 responses. The entire United States of America. 45 people responded. I thought that was a massive response, but let it sink in. 45 people out of how many? And the question was beyond wonderful, good, couldn't have been worded better. In terms of the answers, the majority was part-time. A small handful. Casey March, I've mentioned her before in terms of community education, full-time. Even the ones that answered full-time, which was the small minority, was they have a wide income stream. Some of them, they run a doula school. They're doing public speaking. They're doing this, and end-of-life doula. Number of people out of the 45 was saying, I've been doing this for years. I still don't have a client. How do you even get starter clients? This is a long journey. It is a very hard industry to start a brand new business in. And I'm giving this as a brutal reality check. This is a brutal reality check. It's very difficult to get business in this field for a number of reasons. I don't want to go over that reasons now. I want to just focus on the certification question. So get your feet wet, because whether you go to a $200 online only school or you go to a $3,000 school, that's a lot of money for a piece of paper that is literally a graduation certificate, nothing more. Nothing more. I'm not saying don't go there. I did, but do it with eyes wide open. And if you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. Thank you for your time, and God bless.